Today, I begin by acknowledging the contribution of our forefathers who have helped in creating a world based on freedom and human dignity. I extend my respect to the people of diverse cultures, faith, colors, and genders, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and harmony. A very good evening to one and all present here. I, Srivastava, first year student of DME Media School, welcome you to the 5th edition of the world's first 7-day hybrid international media conference ICAN5. The International Media Conference ICAN5 is being organized by DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education in collaboration with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our audience. Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the school include B.G. Varghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FDP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICAN, and Vitika Convention of Media Students, and newly added to the list, VIS Vibrant India Series. ICAN5 has come with a theme, inclusivity, convergence, and alternative negotiations, with the hashtag communication for all. ICAN5 has the support of 18 partners, including the International Association of Media and Communication Research, IAMCR Gen Section, and GMAC, Global Media and Education Council, as the conference partners. Knowledge partners for ICAN5 are Makhanlal Chaturvedi University, Bhopal, Vigyan Prasad, Government of India, and KSF, Keshav Suri Foundation. For ICAN5, international partners are Institute for International Journalism, Ohio University, USA, Green University, Bangladesh, and Daffodil International University, Bangladesh. Cultural partner for ICAN5 are Beacon House, National University. Media partners for ICAN5 are Amar Ujala, The Policy Times, Jai Hind Times, and The Hindi Post. ICAN5 is powered by Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network, Australia, India Film Practitioners and Researchers Network, SPARC, the Student Council of DME Media School, and RIM, Research and Innovation in Media, Research Cell of DME. The conference is supported by NOTO, National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Since 2018, DME Media School has been organizing the international conference ICAN. The themes for the former editions were India and Changing Aspects of News in ICAN1, Indian Cinema and Alternate Networks in ICAN2, Issues of Community, Agenda and News in ICAN3 with the hashtag Conference for Change, Information, Communication and Artificial Network in ICAN4 with hashtag Communication Redefined. ICAN5 will witness a total of 26 sessions, including 18 live sessions, 5 hybrid sessions, and 3 physical sessions. The schedule comprises of 10 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 2 masterclasses, 2 plenary sessions, and 5 panel discussion. Proud to mention here that all 10 technical sessions are being chaired by women scholars representing different states and countries. It gives me immense pleasure that ICAN5 will go live on the official Facebook page of DME for various sessions. For more information, follow us on our social media handles. We are sharing the links in the chat box. Now, I invite Professor Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School and convener of ICAN5 to give his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kushi. I begin today by acknowledging the contribution of our forefathers who have helped in creating a world based on freedom and human dignity. I extend my respect to people of diverse culture, faith, color, and gender, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and harmony. I welcome everybody in the last session of day 5 of ICAN5. This is a 7-day international conference, and it is to be concluded on 7th of July. So in this conference, as always, we have been having different kind of sessions, which include the plenary sessions, the panel discussions, master classes, workshops, technical sessions, wherein the paper presentations happen. So till last year, last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, we converted it into an online conference in the wake of COVID-19. Last year, we tried to make it hybrid, but then because of the second wave, we again shifted to the online. And that used to be, in fact, the world's first 10-day digital live conference. This year, we reduced it to 7 days and made it hybrid, wherein certain sessions are happening in the online mode, like this session, wherein online is the only possibility. But then wherever it is possible, we have converted the sessions either to physical mode, wherein sessions are happening on the campus of DME only, or in the hybrid mode, where the session is happening in the physical space and it is simultaneously going on Zoom and is being streamed on Facebook or YouTube. So that's all about the ICAN. And then ICAN has been growing over the years with the help of few such people who have been the backbone of this conference, because we always, this year, the theme is on inclusivity, but otherwise we always believe in a collaborative approach, and we seek the cooperation of all such people who can contribute towards the success of this conference. And this year, the number of contributors, the number of collaborators has tremendously increased, and there are 18 partners with us all across the globe. And particularly this year, we try to have focus on Indian subcontinent and including the Pakistan and Bangladesh. So universities of Pakistan and Bangladesh, they have also joined hands with us. And as I was telling you about the people who have been in the foundation of this academic endeavor, so Dr. Jatin Srivastava is one of such persons who has always been providing an extended hand whenever it comes to any academic endeavor, whether it's the ICAN conference or holding any FDP program or any such thing. So this session, he was kind enough to curate this session for us. And then topic-wise also, there's a very offbeat topic that he has chosen for this session. And as we know that this topic for this session is journalism and media education and perspective from international graduate students. And since we are a graduate, undergraduate college, and these are the students who always aspire to go abroad for their master's degree or further for their PhD program. So for them also, it is going to be of great value, because they will get to know firsthand a lot of things which otherwise are not possible to get into. And I also welcome all the panelists, all the students who have joined in this session from the United States. So I welcome once again to Dr. Jatin Srivastava and the whole team, the panelists who are there, and also welcome all the participants in this session who are largely the students from different educational institutions, not only from India, but from other countries as well. So I welcome everybody in this session. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to share that Journalism at the DME is the official newsletter of DME Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out of the campus. It is a student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME TV is our official YouTube channel where you can find the playlist related to all the sessions, lecture series, film festivals, and conferences. Today, we have gathered here for the fourth panel discussion on the theme Journalism and Media Education in the US, Perspective from the International Graduate Students. Now, I would like to welcome and introduce the moderator of the session, Professor Jatin Srivastava. Jatin Srivastava is Associate Professor and Director of the Institute for International Journalism at EW Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University. His recent research is rooted in theory-based exploration of the new media and environment, and his teaching experience ranges from graduate seminars in mass communication theory and research methods to undergraduate courses on graphic design and media literacy. Also, I would like to welcome our panelists for the session, Debipree Rahut, doctoral student, Bowling Green State University, Michelle Michael, doctoral student, Ohio University, Pooja Ichplani, doctoral student, Florida State University. We are honored to have such visionaries and researchers par excellence with us today. Now, I request Professor Jatin Srivastava to please take the session forward.
Thank you, Khushi. It's thank you, Khushi. Thank you, Dr. Saxena, for for the kind words. So let's start with today's session. We are going to we have most of our audience members are bachelor student, and all of our panelists are doctoral students. But the good thing is that they have also done master's studies, right? Many of them in United States, many of them in other countries. Okay? So because most of you are bachelor students, please feel free to ask questions about master's education, the application process, many other experiences, remain pretty similar through the master's and the bachelor's program. And all our panelists, I believe, are well equipped to answer any or all questions that you might have. So without any further ado, I would like to invite my panelists to talk briefly, about themselves, introduce who they are, how they got into this, so essentially up to them, and then we'll start more formally. So starting with, alphabetically first name, I would like to invite Debipree, and then Michelle, and then Pooja. Okay, so Debipree, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Srivastava, for inviting me for this panel discussion. And thank you to the organizers for having me here on this panel. It's always, a sheer joy when you get to know you're going to be connected back home and get to talk to students back in India. It's always a pleasure. To briefly introduce myself, my name is Debipree Rahut. My gender pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm presently working as a doctoral student and a graduate teaching associate in the School of Media and Communication at Bowling Green State University, which is in Ohio. My research interests are largely situate in the critical cultural paradigm, and it focuses on gender and media, feminist studies, new media studies, intercultural communication, digital culture, and digital humanities. I come from Kolkata, India, and I have over 6 years of work experience as a faculty. Prior to joining BGSU, I was working as an assistant professor at St. Xavier's University, Kolkata. And about my journey, I had qualified my NET exam in India, and I had qualified my NET exam in various modality. Like when I first qualified, it was conducted by the UGC, and that too in the offline mode. So we used to go to the universities and give the exam. And then CBSE took over. The initial exam happened in offline mode, but then it switched to online mode, like the banking exam started to happen. So I qualified my CBSE NET in multiple modalities and qualified my NET overall more than once. And I was also enrolled as a doctoral scholar in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Calcutta. And it was then when I started participating in various conferences, workshops, and as you know, as a UGC scholar, you have the additional advantage of getting selected for various MHRD Gyan workshop and other prestigious workshops in India. I also visited IIT, ISI, And it had been a great learning opportunities for me during those times. And it was then that I decided to, grow my scholarship, learn more, and dig more into research and academics. And that's how here I am. In USA, I joined here in fall 2021. I left my doctoral studies back in India. I left my job in India, and here I've completed a year now. And it has been a really fruitful and learning experience. And I look forward to the rest of my stay here to be equally rewarding in terms of other academic opportunities. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Debipree. Thank you, Debipree. That's very nice. Michelle, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Jatin. My audio is still okay, right? Okay, perfect. So Michelle Michael, I'm a doctoral candidate here at Ohio University. Dr. Jatin Srivastava, he is my chair of my dissertation committee, actually. So that's our working relationship. Where do I come from? I'm originally from Colombo, Sri Lanka, so Indian subcontinent. Professional background experience-wise, I used to work for a newspaper group back in Sri Lanka. I was in corporate communications. So I handled like PR and advertising agency relationships and handled like media relations for the company. I was also a columnist for our weekly financial paper there. So that's what I did there. And I did all of my higher education here in the United States. So my bachelor's, master's, and now my PhD. All of that has been here. So I've been here for a little while. And right now I'm finishing up my dissertation, or like I'm in the middle of my dissertation. This is my final year, so wrapping things up, leave everything as well. Research-wise, I look at the intersection of media, intergroup solutions, so intergroup behavior between people, and I look at post-conflict, conflict situations. Peace journalism is one of my key areas of focus study. Again, experiences-wise, I've done like short work experiences here at CNN International and Columbus Dispatch, which is a newspaper serving the Central Ohio region, a primary newspaper here. And I've also worked in corporate patients here in the US, dealing with B2B and B2C companies. That is sort of my professional background, and I teach here at Ohio University. As I mentioned a little while ago, I teach strategic social media, I teach data journalism and multi-platform reporting and writing, which is how do you start out, and it's required for all journalism students here in our program. That is a little bit about me, so pass it on to Pooja.
Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Pooja, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here on the panel. Thank you, Dr. Srivastava, for inviting me here. My name is Pooja Ichplani, born and brought up in New Delhi, not too far from DME. So it's just good to be here virtually. Just to give you a little bit of trajectory, I was a pre-med when I passed high school, and but things did not work out, and I ended up doing a bachelor's in home science from Lady Irwin College. And that's how I end up choosing development communication as my specialization in the second year, and doing the master's also in the same program from the same college. That's where I got exposed to the world of research, and I fell in love with it. And it's just the whole research journey during my master's dissertation process was something that was very awakening, I would say. And the communication research, the participation of people that I'm interested in, I got all of that together. And I was very fortunate to work with my advisor back in India, who had confidence in me that I could do some things. And she was the biggest supporter for me to apply at a university abroad. But before I could do a PhD, even in India or in the US, I wanted to see how the world of research was there in the social sector. So I worked for a couple of years in public health research and social sector. So the organizations I got to work with were Kantar and Johns Hopkins, the sister organization CCCI. So that's there. And then I thought that, okay, I still miss the rigor of research that's in academia. So I thought that it was the perfect time, and then I think I applied in 2019 for my PhD program in the US and got my offer. And I always wanted to do something in public health because that's something that's close to heart. And it's like, that's why I mentioned that's the trajectory. I've been pre-med once. But like Professor Saxena mentioned at the beginning of this session, collaboration and cooperation. That's what I'm interested in, because health is not an individual issue at the end of the day. It's about the community. And I'm interested in interpersonal networks of the people that influence their health behaviors and attitudes. That's my area of work right now. I'm trying to streamline my interest here. Still in my 5th semester of the PhD program. I started in spring 2021. It got delayed because of COVID. So special circumstances, I would say, I started in. And yeah, so right now I'm still in my coursework process, and I'm supposed to take prelims in January. And that's when I would be able to actually do my dissertation work. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. So, so that gave you a sense of, what journalism, communication, and mass communication researchers, students, doctoral students do in the United States. And you would have noticed that it's a very wide spread, very wide spectrum. So, so for example, Michelle works on issues very closely related to journalism, but Pooja is working on issues that are very closely related to public communication, public health communication, health communication. Debipree is, more into gender, and so so communication is at a crossroads of a lot of fields. So you can actually, if you get interested in communication, there are things that you can. So before we get deeper into the details of the choices and how the PhD program works, or even research process, whether it's in master's or PhD works, tell me this: how did you get interested in the, in the PhD program? How did you think about that you want to do this? How much did you know about academic research? How did you decide on the universities you want to go to? So what kind of resources, what kind of environments, what kind of factors played a role in that? And I see a question from Dr. Pandey. So in United States, you have two major groups of universities. So there are private universities, and then there are public universities. So very similar to private universities in India and the government universities, that are funded in part or completely by the government or taxpayers' money. So now coming back to a panel, why PhD? How did you think about it? At the very start, what made you interested? What kind of resources helped you think about what you want to do? Be more specific, because it's different. So if saying that I want to do PhD, then doing something exactly to, specific to move in that direction, that is, sometimes a bit of, let's say, a challenge. So, so let me invite Pooja, to start, and then I'll come to Debipree and Michelle. And please feel free to interject and, remark on anyone else's comments. And audience, please feel free to post questions, comments in the chat window. Pooja, please go ahead.
So just a little bit of background, how it all came together. I would just say that I spent 5 years at Lady Irwin College and I did my research. The only experience from academic research point of view I had was my master's research work. And fortunately, I was able to participate in conferences for that work, and it was highly recognized. And I thought that, yes, I think I can think about something more serious also, because in India, master's dissertation work was not considered as, I mean, credible in the sense that not all people could work like here in the US. That's what I was told and taught. And I thought that, okay, let me just go to US to do another master's, maybe another program, just another major. And I don't know if Debipree knows Dr. Melkote from BGSU, but he was the one who said to me, because he used to come to Lady Evan College for guest lecturer. And he met me once, and I talked to him about my plans for US studies. And he said that don't go to the US for doing another master's. People would think that you are confused if you're doing another major. And if you're doing the same major, then it doesn't make sense. So do your PhD. And I will write a recommendation for you. That's what he said. And I think he was the catalyst that, okay, PhD is the next step. But I still took my time after that conversation with him 1 year, because that was 2018 when I met him again. And I remember an email exchange with him, and I shared the list of universities I was interested in. I would be very honest, Florida State was not on my list then, but he was the one who added it. And I mean, just someone who knows your work and someone who can suggest you the universities, because he had been here for so long and he's still here, I mean, but he could see that my work was more in line with this university. And I got the offer also, thankfully. So that's how PhD became the next step. What else am I missing? I think this is the gist.
That's great, Pooja. Now we'll go to Michelle and then Debipree. Michelle.
Okay, so like Pooja mentioned when she was introducing herself, I think I decided on PhD because of my love for research. That's how I started. So I did my bachelor's here in Georgia in the US. And my very second semester of my bachelor's program, I started working as a research assistant, and research was entirely new to me at that point. I've never done research before in my life. I mean, I've worked, but no proper research per se. And the professor I was working with pretty much showed me the ropes on how to do research. So I even like co-authored a paper with him, and I was part of the honors college at the university. So I would travel to conferences for research, and I won a couple of awards and was recognized for the work I did. So it was kind of like motivating also. The more I liked it, the more work I did, and I was recognized for my efforts from my bachelor stage. And that is when, because I never thought about a PhD before that. When I first came to the US for my bachelor's, I never thought about a PhD. So that's when I was like, wait a minute, you know, maybe PhD is something I can do, I can tackle. So that is how PhD sort of came into my radar. So then I started looking into programs. I started looking into journalism programs in the United States. And OU has one of the best journalism programs in the country, Ohio University. So that's how I applied for my master's and then continued on to PhD. So that is sort of my story.
Thank you, Michelle. Debipree.
Yes, I know listening to Pooja and Michelle, it reminded me, you know, even like them, I never thought that I'll be landing up doing a PhD, that too in US. To give a brief idea about my journey, like I mentioned during my introduction, I was fortunate to qualify a UGC NET in India. And that was the time when I was introduced to the world of higher ed and research in India. But I don't know whether I can say this, like Pooja said, in India, we miss the rigors of research, academic research. And because I had those opportunity of attending some very good workshops by some excellent resource persons, even I think I attended one of the workshops where Dr. Srivastava came, and I was one of the participants in the workshop. So it opened a lot more avenues, okay, so this way you can do research. These are the tools. And another thing I would say is, because I have been on the other side in academics in India as well. In India, there is a lot of structural hierarchy. I'm sorry to say this, but it is a fact. I'm not saying in US the hierarchy is not there, but it is invisible to a certain extent. And I think Pooja and Michelle will agree with me that as grad students, even as undergrad, there is a lot of equity we provide to our students, and they are free to participate. They're free to explore a lot of things. But in India, in terms of research, we are not. We are bound to follow, UGC structure or the college policies. You cannot go beyond those structural restrictions that you have, and that in a way it curbs your creativity, it curbs your potential. Also, there is a lack of guidance. This is something I would say, because not everyone knows everything. Like here in US, as we three were talking, our research are specific. We are very focused. It is not broad. Not everyone can do that. Like Dr. Srivastava has certain expertise, Pooja has certain expertise, Michelle has certain expertise. I am developing my expertise in gender, in feminist studies. So that's also our strength as well as our limitations. But what happens in India, the field is broad. You don't get proper guidance. For example, when I was doing my research and, I pitched my idea to my department and all, I was told it was this way, it does not happen. You have to do certain things. But what exactly am I supposed to do? Because as students, we all know that we need that guidance. But that guidance didn't happen. But it happened when I attended those workshops and I was introduced to some, research tools and methods. And I learned that I can explore this topic in this way. I received a lot of encouragement and support. As for me, what motivated me to apply to US, because I was already a doctoral student, by now I would have been awarded my doctorate. So why did I leave it midway? I was not getting that fun in research. I wanted to dig further. I wanted to actually come up with something. It's not just, doing it for the sake of doing. And that's how I think I was introduced to my current supervisor, Dr. Radhika Gajala, who is well known in the field of digital culture and feminist studies. I met her in 2018 in Pune. I think I met Dr. Srivastava in 2019 as well. And I expressed my interest in terms of learning more about research and furthering my skills. And both of them encouraged me to apply to US. And that's how I started. In terms of application, I would say I was also very focused, because I knew what I wanted to research about. So I was very focused in terms of selecting institutions or universities where I want to apply and do research. So that was also very streamlined as far as I am concerned.
Thank you, Debipree, and thank you all the panelists for your great responses. Now, when we think about master's programs, a lot of things remain pretty similar, right? Application process, you have to select a university. In United States, master's programs require you to do research to a good extent, right? You read research papers, you write research articles, and all that stuff. Now, for someone like me, I did bachelor's in India, and I did my MBA from IMT Ghaziabad. I worked for a petroleum company for some time. I did my second master's in mass communication in United States and my PhD in United States. Okay. So, so I can, kind of say that, yes, there is a lot of similarity in how things work in the application process, in a lot of things that happen afterwards. But one thing that always is there, for a lot of people, especially in South Asia and other parts of the developing world, is that how the money will work out, right? These are environments which are very expensive. And I see a question from Subodh, actually Dr. Sumedha, who talks about, what are scholarship options and procedures and all that stuff. So how do you manage your finances? Are you inherently very, not inherently, but are you very wealthy? So how do you manage your affairs in United States? And I think that's a big barrier for a lot of people. So let's talk about this, and then we can move on to other things. And this time we will start with Debipree, and then Michelle, and then Pooja. Okay. So Debipree, please go ahead.
So I know scholarship and finances are a big concern for everyone who is applying. Believe me, it was for me as well when I started thinking of applying to USA. What I can suggest is, first of all, one needs to look at the institutions that one is keen on applying. And when you are looking for institution, I would say you have to do a bit of homework in terms of not just, applying to R1 institutions. Everyone wants to go to Indiana State. Everyone wants to go to Bloomington. Means you have to narrow down, like, why do you want to go to which university? What are your research focus? For me, it was gender and feminist studies. So I zeroed down institutions which were, providing me good options in terms of their curriculum. Then you need to, what I did was I reached out to people whom I know and I asked their opinion about the institutions I'm applying to. So you can also reach out to people you know and seek their opinion, seek their suggestions. Third, in US, every university have their websites up to date. So you can easily go to the departmental or the school website, look for what the course curriculum is, and they have a separate international page where they mention the cost of living, the cost of application. By the way, the cost of application can be waived. I got to know this later on, but you can definitely get it waived if you're applying to a US institution. And you get to know, what will be your stipend. You can also write to your graduate course coordinator. People here do respond to emails and they will reply to you and they will be encouraging. So you can always write to people in the department you are interested to, and they will tell you about your finances. What I can suggest from my experiences, it's always good, whichever institution you are going, please carry, I think, 3,000 to 4,000 USD with you. You can get that. And that will help you to pay your initial fees, whatever it is. Some schools pay their health insurance, some school does not. And there are some initial course fee and initial setup fees, your accommodation and everything. But once you start getting your stipend, here we get it bi-weekly, you will be good to go. You don't have to worry much about the finances. Only thing is that you have to understand that you are a grad student, you are not earning, so you cannot afford certain luxurious things. So you have to curb some of your, interests, but it's good to go. And there are other resources as well. University food pantries are there, university scholarships are there. You get summer jobs in the university as well, and that helps you to suffice over here in the US.
Thank you, Debipree. Michelle.
Yeah, so I don't want to repeat what Debipree just mentioned, so I'll tell a couple of things I think are important. So money is always a concern, and I don't really come from a well-off family either. So like most of you, I'm sure it's always like, okay, how am I going to manage? So I tell this to my family also, if anybody asks me, finish your bachelor's. Because once that is done, I feel like there are a lot more opportunities for graduate programs here in the US. Somehow just finish your bachelor's, and after that, again, into moving over here if that's what you want to do. So usually PhD programs pay you a little more than master's, right? The difference is if the particular department only has the highest degree they offer is just a master's program, the chances are that they give you a better pay than a department with both master's and doctoral studies. Because if the department offers both master's and doctoral program degrees, then doctoral students get a higher pay and the master's students will get less than that. So if you're concerned about money and not so concerned about the particular department, look for departments that the highest degree they offer is just master's. Their pay is going to be a little better, usually. That being said, so for graduate programs, most universities, because they want you to focus on your curriculum, they want you to focus on the research you do because they value it, they pay you for your work, right? That's how we get paid our stipends. So like, again, like Debipree said, if you are just coming here, have a startup funds in a way, because you have to have that startup costs covered, which is going to include your health insurance. And again, you won't get your stipend until like the second or third week or 1 month, let's say, right? So you need to have startup funds to get yourself settled before you can start the program. And that usually includes rent, including deposits and like the first month's rent and like first month's like, setting up from toiletries to getting your groceries to whatnot and your health insurance things. And most programs will offer you a full tuition waiver, but then there are certain fees that you still have to pay for. So being able to cover those basic fees at the very beginning is important. So just make sure you have some way of paying for those startup costs. And after that, again, I feel like I'm repeating what Debipree said, but do get a stipend, and that usually helps you cover most of your expenses. So that, again, be smart and wise and budget properly. Don't be a mindless spender. But if you're being careful with what you earn and how you spend the money, it's doable. It's absolutely doable. So don't, if you're really set on finishing your higher education degree, like your graduate studies here in the US, don't let finances stop you, because definitely there are ways. And I'll pass it on to Pooja.
Pooja.
So what I would add to this is that when I was thinking about my PhD funding options, I was very clear that if I do not get funding from school, I would not accept the offer, because there was no way my parents would have afforded the education, just because of the differences in the currency amount. I mean, 1 to 80 is not good for India. So I mean, the student loans are just too expensive also. So that's not an option. It's not the last resort. So I think if you are really serious about studying abroad, then stand out in your application to make sure that you do get that funding, because there are options. And I think for this reason, US higher education is attractive, because your application can get you that funding or money, whatever. And of course, you are getting the stipend for the work. They are not giving you anything for free. We are working for them and they are giving us money, they are giving us waivers. Maybe we are still have to pay some amount of the fees, the mandatory fees. And just remember that you are international students in the US, so you are paying extra for that also. And as an international student, you have to take care of another thing which natives do not have to, which is maintaining that legal status, the F1 status. So you cannot work beyond 20 hours in any case. So even in summers, there are a lot of, at least at FSU it is, there are a lot of restrictions on the kind of work that you can do beyond your school assistantships. So even if you're in a master's program as an international student, you have to be very up to date with your global studies, global engagement department, whatever is that available at your school, that what is the legally valid thing to do? That can you even do a job? Can you even do just a job at Starbucks? That's not always the case. Okay, so I am not allowed to do that, by the way. So,
I'd like to add a couple of things, which I'm sorry to interrupt, but I hope it's okay for us to have a conversation, right? So just to sort of add on to it, as an international student, you can't work off campus if you're on an F1 visa, right? And 20 hours a week cap if you're working even on campus, even if it's on campus, which is the only place where you can work as an F1 student, you can only work up to 20 hours a week. There are certain exceptions during summer. Again, you have resources. Talk to your international student office. They will tell you the whole procedure. They'll explain all of that to you. So that is a possibility. Going back to graduate students and stipends, most of our contracts, the stipend contract is only for 9 months, which is for fall and spring, which means you to get paid in the summer. So if you're coming here as a student, sort of plan out for that. Like, unless you can always find a summer job. There are options for summer. I'm not saying no, but if even before, like, just to sort of like, be ready and be careful, prepare your budget for 12 months with what you earn in that 9 months, if you can. And of course, when you earn in summer, that's going to be extra, and that's going to be just a good, nice padding for your expenses, if at all. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Can I
Pooja?
Yeah,
quickly add something
Please
to what?
do.
Yeah. Pooja and Michelle have brought in a very important topic in terms of our work. Like you have to maintain your F1 status, and for that, please constantly be in touch with your international program office. I always get confused with all the clauses and with the COVID thing, and I always reach out to them and they reach out to me. Second is for summer, I think we can work for 28 hours, international students F1 on F1 visa. And like both of them said, Pooja and Michelle, here the work contract is different. For example, I can share my experience. This summer I'm working, I'm lucky I'm fortunate to get a good summer job, on-campus summer job. And I'm working on an NSF grant with the BGSU Allies team. And we had a conference, and I'm working on some online learning modules with aims to bring in structural equity in terms of gender in STEM field. I have signed a contract with them. I cannot leave US during summer. I have to stay in US. I have to work with them in US. That's a tech contract I have signed. So you have to, when you are signing contract, you have to be very careful of what you are signing in for. And in terms of stipend, like Michelle said, we get 9 months funding. But international students can manage to save a bit. Like Pooja said, don't let your dream of pursuing your studies get affected just because of finance. Be a bit miser. Don't do a lot of things that other people might be doing. Be careful of your finances, and you can definitely manage the summer months, because as I said, there are a lot of other supportive resources in the university that you can avail of. So yeah.
Thank you, Debipree and Michelle. Pooja, would you like to add anything?
So just to come back to the point where you're actually reaching out to the department or the school before you're applying or during the application process, they will tell you what is the period for guaranteed funding. So like at FSU, when you are given the funding at the offer stage, it's for the first year. And then you have to maintain a good academic standing, whatever the university standards are. So that's something that you have to work. So it's not just getting into the program, you have to maintain that. So just don't forget that you are here for a goal. Don't let that out of your sight. And so I know for FSU, for me, it's like 10 semesters of funding, given you have a good academic standing and good evaluations from your teaching assistantships and research assistantships, whatever they are asking you to do for your stipend. So just make sure that you are doing your best. I think one thing that I take simultaneously is just aligning with my values, but still doing my work, being committed to my work. So don't give up your values, but don't give up your work commitments as well. So just balance it out, and you will find some time for yourself, because really you don't have the family here, so you're doing everything by yourself. So that's another thing, but yeah.
Thank you, Pooja. So let me add a bit from my experience about the master's program, because most bachelor students, have to go to master's program before they can get into the PhD program. The structure of the master's program, financial options run very similar to the PhD program. So you can get the regular, open admission, where you will have to pay the full fee, which can range from, I would say, somewhere from $15,000 per semester to $30,000 per semester, and sometimes even more. On top of that, you have to pay for your food, you have to pay for all your living arrangements and everything. So you are looking at, even in the most affordable places, I think you are looking at around $40,000 per year, right? At least. Okay. So now, so that's one option. Now the other option is that you get funding. Now funding, sometimes you get scholarships, right? So scholarships is they just give you tuition waivers, or you get some money, like let's say 15% off on your tuition, those kind of things. The third thing, which is not necessarily a scholarship, it's work, which most of our panelists are doing. So that is graduate assistantship, teaching assistantship. So essentially you go to the university and you work for them, and for that you are being paid money. And you are also given tuition waiver in some jobs and not given tuition waivers in some jobs. So for example, when I joined my master's program at Kansas State and I got the funding, they used to pay me a stipend of $750. In Kansas, it's cost of living was lower, so I could manage. There was a tuition waiver also, so I didn't have to pay tuition, and this was the money I was getting. I was using it to manage my my living costs and everything. At Ohio State, where I did my PhD, I got the assistantship, and the same thing happened. Okay? So assistantship is one of the most common ways for people to support themselves as they go through graduate studies. About master's studies, another thing that you should know is that for a big number of programs in the United States, they require you to have a 4-year bachelor's degree, or it's a 12+4 model, right? In India, for example, there are a lot of bachelor's degrees which are 3 years. So then you have 12+3. So for example, when I did my bachelor's, it was in maths and physics. And if I had wanted to apply for a master's program after that, most universities wouldn't have accepted my application because I was only 12+3. But when I did my MBA, and that made it 12+3+2, so 12+5. And that made me eligible to apply for the master's program. So that is something that I think also becomes an issue sometimes. But finances, yes, they are challenging, but they are sometimes not as challenging as you imagine they would be, right? So if you are a good student, if you make a strong application, if you work on it, it all works out for people like me or Debipree or Pooja or Michelle, right? And I believe none of us are from very wealthy families. Okay? So that was one thing. Now, now let's talk about one other thing, and that's the application process. And then we will come to, I see some questions from audience, wonderful questions. So when you go for the application process, right? So there are some major elements that are common, and these, these are common among masters and PhD programs. So the applications run very similar. So you will have to take exams, GRE or TOEFL for most places. You will need to have a statement of purpose. You will need to have letters of recommendations, okay? And your CV, your curriculum vitae. Now, this is something that is pretty much the same in master's and the PhD program. It's just that in the PhD program, they are looking at the academic aspect a bit more deeply than in the master's program. Okay, so when you were thinking about the application process, planning your application, how did you plan for those? And now, after you have been admitted and you have been successful in in your goal, what do you think were the most important factors when you were preparing your application? Okay. So let me change the order a bit. So let me invite Michelle first, and then Debipree and Pooja, and then Pooja. Okay. So Michelle.
I think one of the most important aspects of an application process is your personal statement. And the committee, the admission committee, they usually give special attention to your personal statement. So when it comes to personal statements, I'd say I feel like sometimes it's so easy for us to just, there's this format, everybody sort of expects this, I need to sell myself, whatever, there's what is sold out there. Don't sort of fit that mold. Instead, try to tell your story, like where you come from, why you want to do what you want to do. Always answer the why question, because that is crucial. So I think personal statement is important. And when you are writing your personal statement, or when you're thinking about your personal statement, tell your story. And as human beings, we are all creatures of stories. We like stories. We have our stories. We want to share our stories. So tell your story and tell it in a compelling way where they're like, oh, I want to work with this person. I want this student in my university. So tell your story and don't try to fit into a mold that you think is what they want. Rather, tell from your, because we're all unique and we have different stories to tell. So tell your story. With that being said, TOEFL is a requirement, especially if you're looking for assistantships, and especially if and I guess this will come after your master's, although I did teach during my master's also. Anytime you want to stand in front of the classroom as an instructor, have to take these extra tests, at least at OU. I'm not sure about Debipree and Pooja. Even after getting my TOEFL scores and all of that, I had to take another test administered by OU just to make sure that my verbal language skills were okay and understandable by students. Well, there are issues with that because accents, everyone has accents, so it doesn't matter what accent you have. But just to make sure that we are clear and can be understood by the students, right? Especially if we are teaching. So TOEFL scores and GRE scores matter. And also, honestly, don't sweat about GRE, because I feel like a lot of people get so stressed about GRE, and then, I don't know, just take it, and then it's a whole package. It's not just one test score that's going to get you through anything, right? Of course, you want to do well in GRE, but don't sweat it so much that, I don't know, say go to the exam. So don't do that. That's all I have for the application process.
Thank you, Michelle. Debipree, and then Pooja.
Yes, so to carry on what Michelle has said, yes, please don't fret over your GRE scores. Like I gave my GRE twice, if that gives anyone some consolation. I was full-time working, and it was not easy, when you work for an institution like St. Xavier's, and you have to follow the UGC mandate of taking 17 hours of teaching load in a week, you don't have time to prepare. So my first GRE was not that good, but my second GRE was good. So it's all about practice, like any other competitive exams. So don't fret over that. TOEFL is very mandatory, especially for international students, particularly because you will be teaching, even at the master's level, like Michelle said. Fortunately for me, I cleared the ESL score at the first go, so I didn't have to, continue with the classes. But a lot of international students had to work on their, accent even after having their TOEFL scores over here. In terms of application process, like Michelle said, personal statement is very important. Now, there is something called a cultural thing that I would like to speak about. We are told in India, apni taarif nahi karni hai. But please forget this mantra. Please forget this mantra. Talk about yourself. Talk about your strength, what you are good at. Because that's what people will get to know, because they are not getting to see you. They are getting to read your statement of purpose, which is your personal application, where you are telling your own story. How did you find your interest into academics or into applying to US, and what you are good at? Like, why should they take you? What you are bringing in to them? What cultural aspect or what positive aspect in terms of academics you are bringing to the US academia? So you have to talk about that. So don't shy away from singing a bit praise about yourself and about your strength. And you have to rewrite it again and again. I think, 3 or 4 times. First, there is a rough draft, then read it again after a few days. And if you have a support system or, seniors who can go through your statement of purpose, or even your teachers, and give you some suggestions, please do that, because many a times when we write, we don't know how our audience is getting the information by reading it. So it is very, very important about that. Another thing in terms of application is, I would say, I know because a lot of my students also have, interest in applying to other places, and 2 of my students have got a master's scholarship in UK, and I'm very happy for them. But what I told them and what they did correctly was they just didn't apply to any random institution. You have to look for it. So to look for the institutions very strategically, which can offer you what you are looking for in terms of masters or even a PhD. So be very particular about which institutions you are applying. You have to apply to a lot of institutions to increase your chances of getting accepted. And also you have to be sure that all your documents are ready. Letter of recommendation is very important. I would say it's always better to reach out to your potential, supervisors or people who are going to write your LOR for you and inform them beforehand. Don't just tell them, few days before that, sir or ma'am, you have to write a letter of recommendation for me. It doesn't happen that way. It takes a lot of time into writing your LOR. So give them that time and reach out to them and talk to people who can provide you some guidance, by looking at your CV. Like also, it is very important the way we structure our CV. In India, the structure of CV is different than what we look for here in US. So your CV needs to be aligned to the US system. And it's not a very big difference. Anyone, who you can reach out to, your teachers, your supervisors, or your network can give you some sort of guidance. And I think, yeah, and I'd pass on to Pooja.
Pooja, please go ahead.
Thank you. So not to repeat anything Michelle or Debipree said, but I would just like to share my experience that one of my friends who was already doing the PhD here, he recommended that I make an Excel sheet. So I made the spreadsheet with all my prospective universities. And like Debipree mentioned, we have to apply to multiple universities. We cannot do with 2 or 3. So just if, for instance, if you are applying to 8 universities, make sure that 2 are top tier, 3 are mid-level, and 3 are like not so great, because that increases your chance. But make sure that your goals, that what you want to achieve while studying in the US, all those 8 universities will do that. Because at the end of the day, you are moving out of India. So that's even if in your category it's the low level university, it's still a good university. It's not that. So if research is the main area that you would like to focus, then yes, it can be an R1 university. Maybe they are not providing as much funding as a top tier university would, but just make sure that you are selecting those options very carefully and make a spreadsheet with all the factors and all the requirements. Of course, every university requires a personal statement, and I absolutely agree with Michelle's point that it has to be a narrative. Even if they call it a personal essay, you have to tell your story. You are a storyteller, and they will get compelled by reading it. That's the goal that you are going at it. But many universities require different things in the personal statement. So make sure that you are filling that. You cannot just write one personal statement and just tailor it a little bit and submit to all the universities. You have to make sure that you are actually giving them what they are asking you, because like Debipree mentioned, they are very up to date on the website and they will get back to you if you ask them a question. So they are very clear that what they want. Sometimes they want a research proposal in a short paragraph at the end of the statement. Sometimes they don't want that. Sometimes they want you to know that which professor you're going to work with. Sometimes they don't want to know. So make sure that you are reading that. So that's why that spreadsheet was really helpful to make sure. Even the average GRE scores, accepted scores, every university might have a different one. Something like Harvard would have the highest score, but FSU did not have that. And right now, currently, FSU has waived the requirement for GRE. So that's something that's positive for the three or 4 years next. So that's something good. And yes, I also had to take another speak test after TOEFL scores so that I could actually be an instructor of record, because as a TA, you are not really interacting with the students verbally, but only through emails as much. But as an instructor of record, you are standing up on stage with 120 students in the lecture room, and you have to make sure that the thoughts and your ideas are coming across very clearly. So that's something that they require, and I think it's a good practice also. Again, and because we, as international students, funding is a very big factor here. So I think even if a mid-level university is offering you an admission and a funding, and top tier level is just offering you an admission, I think you should go with the mid-level university, because that's something that you have to do if you are really interested in studying. So that just eases the process, because it does not burden you. It does not stress you as much. I'm not saying that right now it's not stressful, but it just lessens the effect, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Pooja.
one thing, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Srivastava, like you mentioned that when you were applying that US universities require a 4-year bachelor's program, With my experience, I would say that I had a bachelor's and a master's from India, and many universities just did accept the master's for a PhD admission. But my application was disqualified from Temple University because they required a US level master's. And that was not explicitly written on the website. But when I had already submitted my application, their graduate coordinator reached out to me that, this is the issue. And I was like, it's not written. But then they said that you can submit the converted scores within this time frame. And because COVID had already started, I could not do that. So make sure that you are taking all these things, that what is written, just make sure that you are understanding it correctly, because I have been through that. And that was one of my top preferences, because the professor had already agreed to work with me. But that did not happen. So yeah.
Thank you, Pooja. So we have a lot of questions from the audience. Now, I think there is like some be clubbed. The question from the questions about the differences in the nature of research between let's say between developing world countries like India, Sri Lanka, South Asia, a region like South Asia, and United States. The second thing is, how is the relationship between your supervisor or your advisor work differently? Now, let me talk, because most of you are undergraduate students. So let me talk a bit about the process, the advisor thing, right? So for both masters and PhD, you need to have some kind of capstone. Now, what capstone project is? It's a project that it's a professional or academic project that you have to do. For PhD, because it's a heavily research-oriented degree, you have to do a dissertation. For most master's program, there are options like a master's thesis, which is a research project, or some kind of a professional project. Like you can probably make a documentary, you can do something else, or so on. Okay. Now, for both of these, for both master's and PhD level, what generally happens is that you form a committee, of people, of professors from the university, and you have a chair of the committee. Now, this chair of the committee is also your supervisor or your advisor. Okay. So you have an advisor both in master's and PhD. Okay. So when people talk about advisor, and I really am not very comfortable with the word supervisor. Okay, when they use the word advisor, that's what they are talking about, right? Both in master's and the PhD program. Okay. So now I'll bring these questions, to the panel, and I'll repeat the question. So, how is research different, and how is the advising process or the relationship between advisors and and the candidates or the students different? Now, remember, most of us are talking about our experiences. So, it might not be generalized, but that gives you, I believe, a good sense of how things are, so let's start with Debipree, and then Pooja, and then Michelle. Debipree.
Yes, it is very different. If I have an experience in India, and then I'm seeing this experience over here in US, so it's a huge difference for me, a huge difference for me. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there are structural hierarchies present in the Indian academic system, and until and unless we deal with that, we cannot make it all the more participatory and inclusive. But having said that, there are a lot of universities in India that are doing some amazing work with research. A University of Hyderabad, Savitribai Phule Pune University, JNU, Delhi University. I'm saying this because I never wanted to come out of India. I really wanted to finish my education in India. I'm a very family-oriented person, but ultimately I was forced to look for avenues outside my own country that is going to give me that rigors of research. And I have been fortunate enough to receive a lot of support from my advisor. who is amazing. She is the reason I'm here. She is the reason I'm able to survive day in and day out. And she is the reason, my interest in research has grown, and I have had a very rewarding 1-year experience over here. And it's not only advisor or my chair, it's also the people who are there in my committee and the kind of mentorship they are providing me over here. One thing I would say, what happens in India, because of so much of work pressure, maybe the advisor is not able to give you a lot of personal guidance, I would say. But here in US, I'm not saying they don't have work. They have a lot of work and they know how to manage time and do everything. But even then, they give you a dedicated time, because we have office hours, and there are time in a week I'm meeting with my advisor and I'm discussing my progress. I'm discussing my ideas. She is going through my drafts. She's guiding me. She's telling me what to do, what to read. So these kind of things are certainly different than what you get in India. But apart from that, I think it's about the support system overall, your advisor, your committee members, even other professors in the department, and everyone is going to provide you an equal opportunity. You will not feel, left out of any thing, research happening in the department, and you will enjoy it in the long run. What was the second question? I'm so sorry, I forgot the second question.
Well, how is research different? How is supervising different? Or
Yeah,
advising different?
Advising different, yeah. So advising, I said they have dedicated office hours every week, and we meet and we keep a track of it. So that's how we get, the step-by-step guidance. And in terms of research, research is definitely different over here. I remember once I met Professor Dayakisan Thusu, and he told me, PhD is the highest form of education. So you cannot just do it as a mere degree. So here, actually, it's not a mere degree. All of us are passionate about research, and we are investing that, 4 to 5 years of our life doing some good research. A lot of structural resources are available in terms of library. Library is something that you must take advantage of if you are applying to US and you happen to be there. The librarian will be your biggest resource. Apart from that, here are writing centers that can give you feedback on your writing as well. Like, a paper that you have written for a course in a semester, you can get those resources as well. Interlibrary loan are available. So if the book or the journal is not available in your library, write to your librarian and they will get that interlibrary loan for you, and you have access to that. Apart from that, your advisor will constantly be mentoring you and guiding you and telling you what to read, where to look for resources, and also give you some suggestions how to improve on your ideas, and how you are supposed to go about with the whole research process. But also I would like to mention, I think like Pooja said, here you have to maintain your GPA to make sure that you are continuing getting that scholarship. Same goes for research as well. Our coursework, our teaching evaluations, it has to be good. So similarly, if you are not able to do well in your coursework, you can be asked to drop out from the course because your scholarship might stop. So you have to be very focused on your research. Your focus should not deviate after you come over here. Ki nahi, America dekhna hai. You will have all your life to see US, but for the 4 or 5 years, please focus on research, because that's going to open a whole new opportunities for you. So yeah, and I'd like to pass on.
Pooja, and then Michelle.
So as far as advising is concerned, my experience differs from Debipree. Like I said, I was fortunate to have worked with Dr. Kumar at Lady Irwin College during my master's program. I remember she had 5 master's students working with her during our batch. And I think that's the biggest difference, because in India, at least at Lady Irwin College, it was a lottery system that decided that which student will get which professor as their advisor. And in the US, you actually choose, and then it's up to the professor if they agree or if they accept that, okay, I can guide you with your goals, because their research interest should align with yours. And of course, you would have made an informed decision about, just reaching out and asking them. But that's the biggest difference I've seen in India. But yeah, my master's advisor used to be very invested. I remember I used to sit on campus until 5 p.m. working with her on my drafts, and all of them were read because I used to give her printouts. And that's a joke with my PhD advisor now, that now it's all online, so I don't get to see the red marks. But yeah, I have been fortunate to work with very nice advisors, both now and previously. As far as I would say, the difference I would say about my advisors right now is about the extent of friendliness. During masters, it was not exactly transactional, but it was not like she was not my friend. But here it's more acceptable, I think, and maybe because of the cultural difference. But she's not an American. She comes from South America. She's a Colombian. But I think we hit it off very well because our research interests are so aligned. I think that is one of the key aspects that you need to be very careful about, that you are choosing the right person to guide you. Because if they are not invested in your work, then 4 years is a big, big commitment to work on your own. So of course, you are not going to be meeting them even every week, but whenever you are meeting, make the most use of that time, because that's something that is very critical. They will fine tune your ideas. They will sometimes reject your ideas. And I think that's a very good sign that the advisor is actually invested, because if they are not saying no, then I think they're not listening. So that's something that I believe in. Because we need to have something that we need to have all our variety of research studies which are moving towards the same direction. So it's not that you are working the same kind of things, but you are actually having some nuanced approach. Research-wise, comparing India and US and my experience, I would say in the US, it's more structured. The training is more structured. Library definitely has more resources here in India, in DU. I remember the only academic site we had access to was JSTOR, and only through college computer center. So I could not be at home and log in through my school ID and access that research article. I had to be on college, on campus. So that's a big difference here. We just have to have our email ID and that's enough. So please make use of that. And here state libraries are very good. So that's something, that's another resource which is just here because you are here. I think training centers, writing centers, yes, but also the coursework, because I remember my stats course during masters, it was all theory. So I never got to learn SPSS because my college did not have access to SPSS license. So I could not learn how to actually analyze quantitatively. But here, when I took my stats course in communication research, the SPSS license was given to students because it's something that university has, and they extend it to the students, maybe through the virtual lab or maybe through SPSS from IBM itself. So that's a big difference, because learning by doing is something that's very important when you are a researcher. And if you're not able to do that, then you are not able to analyze big chunk of data that you will get after your study, primary data collection. So that's the biggest thing that I have observed. And I think all the advanced courses that I've taken for stats, they've always been very practical. They have asked us to work with real data. Even the weekly assignments that we have been asked to do were based on real data. So that's the structure I'm talking about. And every course culminates with a research project, maybe a proposal, maybe a small study that you can do within 3 or 4 months, depending on which semester you are talking about. So while doing those small scale studies, you are actually enhancing with everything that you are doing. So that's something that I never got to do in my master's, because, and the reason I'm comparing it is because here, master's and doctoral students are taking the same courses. We have combined classes. Requirements sometimes differ, yes, depending on the course and the instructor. But in India, it was all about the final exam. And that's the thing that used to bother me so much. Here it is spread throughout the course of your semester. But there it was all about the final exam. So you are actually being tested and assessed with everything that can be there on that particular subject topic, because each instructor has their own style of teaching also. So that's something that needs to be considered here. So yeah, structure, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. Michelle.
Yeah, so I really can't speak much about the difference between research in the US and India. I never did my education there. And even about Sri Lanka, because I did not do my bachelor's there either. However, I will share my sister's experience. So this is secondhand. She was working on her bachelor's and trying to finish up her research project for her bachelor's thesis. And she would discuss her project with me more than she did it with her committee sometimes, because that relationship between her advisors, her committee, and her were different with what I heard from her compared to the ones I've had, my experiences here in the US. So comparing Sri Lankan education and here, again, not my personal, but secondhand through my sister. That being said, let me talk about GPA, because both of you, both Debipree and Pooja mentioned about GPA requirements. It's important, you have to maintain it. At the same time, I remember when I first came here, when I first started my bachelor's, I heard that for you to get an A, a regular A, you have to score over 90. And like 90 to 92, 93 is still A minus, it's not A. And I was like, wait a minute, that seems hard, because in Sri Lanka, in my grade 1 through like A levels at least, you had to get like above 80, I think was A. So it was just like, whoa, I have to get 90, it just seemed impossible. Then I started and I was like, wait a minute, this is not bad. So because the education system is different, you can get A's, it's not hard. And I think one of you mentioned again, it's not just memorizing. I think a lot of South Asian education system, I don't want to generalize, but if I know it, we tend to just prioritize being a firm, whereas the US education system encourages you to be an application-oriented education. So you need to know how to apply what you study. So it's completely doable. And especially in graduate courses, more than exams, we depend a lot on papers. So most of your coursework at the end of the semester, you're writing a paper, whether it's research paper, whatever paper it is, you're writing a paper more often than not. So be aware of that. Relationships with supervisors, let me rephrase, advisor, and your committee. Dr. Jatin Srivastava, he is my advisor. He was my advisor during my master's. He is my advisor during my doctoral studies. And we clearly have a good working relationship, which is why I'm continuing it with him, right? Your advisor can make or break you in the sense of they are there to guide you, right? So if you don't have a good working relationship with your advisor, it's going to be kind of hard to get through the program. So choose wisely, because yes, they have to do research in your area because they have to be able to guide you in the subject knowledge. But at the same time, you also need, as human interaction, that's important also. But that being said, yes, advices are important, but at the end of the day, it's your project. So you own it. And unless you are trying, unless you are putting effort, and unless you are initiating, like, it is not really going to affect them, right? So yes, they are there to guide you. And Dr. Jatin has been wonderful in advising me, but at the same time, it is my project. If I don't put effort into it, nothing is going to get done. So just take ownership of your research and then go ahead. So yes, there are cultural differences, which I think Debipree and Pooja mentioned, so I want to go into that. The final thing I'd say, however, is I think I would only partially agree with Debipree when she said 4 to 5 years, focus on research, you can do things later. Yes and no. Yes, you need to prioritize your education because that's why you're here, and so don't lose track of your goal. But at the same time, live, because you have to take care of yourself. You have to have a balanced life, especially with the pandemic. And you are away from home. If you do come here or wherever you go, you'll be away from your immediate support system that you've had all your life, right? So you need to survive in order for you to do anything. And I tell this to my own students in my classrooms, like, you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing is going to happen, right? So yes, education is important, but also need to be a well-rounded person in order for you to make any change in any environment, right? So think of or remember that also, and I shall not take any more time. So Dr. Jatin.
Michelle reminded me of something. Can I share?
Please,
An
go ahead.
anecdote actually, because she talked about grades and advisors. So yeah, I remember I had a test for my GIS class last fall, and I did not score well according to my standards. And coincidentally, I had a talk with my advisor right after the test, and I told her that I did not do well, and I'm in a very bad mood. And she said, let's celebrate. And I said, I told you I have not worked well in that, and I have not scored well. And she said, let's celebrate that you took it. So that's the kind of support that I think was very helpful at that point of time, because I was just sitting at the lake here in Tallahassee, just thinking about what I could have done to just get some better score, because I knew that it was going to impact my final course grade. But then when she said that, let's celebrate that you took it, I think that was one of the highest moments between the two of us, that, okay, I have got an advisor who is not really after my grades, because she should be, but she was not. Yeah, it was just a fun thing to just remind me.
So thank you, Pooja. Now we have 1 more minute left, and there's a question for me. So I would like to answer it. But if there's anything else any of you would like to add before we conclude, please feel free to do so.
I think, Dr. Srivastava, you should take up the concluding thing that you were saying.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Saxena. So yeah, so so there's this question about what makes you accept or reject PhD or postdoc applications. There's another question: improving what can Indian institutions or South Asian institutions can do to improve institutional experiences for working PhD scholars. Now, when we look at applications, right, a lot of times we are looking at a lot of applications. So there are some elements that are used to eliminate applications, right? So PhD score. So yes, if you are below, GRE scores or TOEFL scores, if you are below a certain score, we will remove those applications. But if you are above it, then it doesn't matter how much you are above it, right? So if, let's say, the elimination score is 1,000, then if you have 950, we will remove you. But if you are 1,100 or 1,400, then it doesn't matter, right? So there are some of those elements, but the most important thing is your statement of purpose. The thing that you are telling us about yourself. A lot of times we are looking at a lot of CVs, a lot of numbers. So it doesn't, so reading the statement of purpose becomes the easiest thing to do, right? Now, one thing that scholars from South Asia or applicants from South Asia, many times that's something that I've seen happening very often, is that they focus too much on professional achievements, but rarely much on what kind of research they want to do, what do they want to do, right? And I think that's a very important thing. You really don't need to have experience in doing research to want to do something, right? And that's a very important thing about United States. If you tell people that this is what I want to do, people trust you and they are willing to teach you. So when I look at an application, I say, all right, there is this person, because of his or her life situations, because of things that has happened with him or her, this person is very interested in answering this question. I do not assume that he or she has or they have all the skills they need to answer this question right now. That's why they are coming here. And they will come here and we will try to help them figure this out. Now, you always have the choice. So if you write that I want to do this in your statement of purpose, and then you come to join an institution, and you say, I want to do something else, that's perfectly fine. That's what, what I think growing up as an academician, growing up as a scholar is all about. It's about making choices. It's about, being able to change your mind, having the freedom. So I think focus on research or the reluctance to tell your story. That I think, is something that I've noticed quite a bit. And I believe all of you have talked about it. What can we do to improve institutional experiences for working PhD scholars in South Asian higher ed environments? Remember, these are evolving environments, right? And it happened pretty much the same way in United States. So journalism and media education originally was very profession driven. Even before that, in the early stages, it was people were taking, people with English or rhetoric majors. When the journalism departments or media departments were not there, they were doing it in other departments. So they evolved. So now they are at a very developed stage where they can focus on professional matters as well as research matters at the same time. In India, it's still close to the professional development of professional stage. But as time moves, and I noticed that a lot of institutions are trying to do it. They have the intent. They are creating resources, journals, academic groups, investing in libraries. So I think that will happen. But one thing I think is, and that is very important, that faculty members or administrators within an institution can do is to create an environment that is encouraging, to create, to facilitate thinking, to allow their students to be critical thinkers first. And then they will, come up and start thinking about research. So critical thinking happens pretty much everywhere. Research is just one thing where a critical thinker says that this is something that I want to know more about, and I want to do it in a very structured manner. So that's all I had for today. And this is 9:04 in India. So thank you everyone for being here very late with us. And it was always wonderful to be here. Back to Dr. Saxena.
Yeah, Dr. Srivastava, we will take 2-3 more minutes. Khushi Srivastava will do the final things.
Thank you all for such an insightful session. Now I invite Professor Dr. Srivastava Bala, Head DME Media School and Chief Associate Convener, ICAN5, to give the concluding remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Khushi. Thanks, Dr. Jatin Srivastava, for bringing a panel to ICAN, which was of great interest to a student in India. This panel would have helped the student in India to understand the aspects related to higher education and doctoral research in the United States. All three panelists, Preeta, Michelle, and Pooja, narrated their academic journey, which was really interesting. I hope the student participants are leaving this session with a lot of takeaways. Thank you, everybody, for making this discussion a fruitful exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we come to the conclusion of this panel discussion. My foremost and heartfelt thanks to the session experts for sharing valuable insights about the theme Journalism and Media Education in the US, Perspectives from the International Graduate Students. Sincere thanks to management of DME, Mr. Aman Sahani, Vice Chairman, Justice Pawar Singh, Director General DME, Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, Director DME, for their support in every endeavors being taken by DME Media School. Heartfelt thanks to the Dean DME Media School, Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Head DME Media School, Professor Dr. Srivastava Bala, for their motivation in planning and executing the flagship events of Media School. Thanks to Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Associate Professor and Associate Convener of ICAN5, for overall coordination for the International Media Conference. Thanks to Sumantra Sarthi Das and Vishal Sahai, Assistant Professor, and Yogesh Sharma, Faculty at Media School, for digital and production support for ICAN5. Thanks to Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Associate Professor and Academic Coordinator, DME Media School, and Pramod Kumar Pandey, Assistant Professor, for their efforts in supporting ICAN5. Thanks to Shruti VS, Assistant Professor, Media School, she has supported ICAN5 as the convener for cultural team and student coordination. Mohammad Kamil and Sukriti Arora, Assistant Professors for newsletter, press briefings, and media coordination support. Dr. Ritika Saxena, Assistant Professor for designing and creative support. Saima Pravez and Dr. Sumeda for their support with social management team. I also thank Pawan Saxena, Anmol Mehta, Tulika Arora, CM Anand, Abhishek Yadav, Jagan for administrative and logistics support, student convener Priya Yadav for her consistent support in ICAN5. Special thanks to our conference partners, knowledge partners, international partners, cultural partner, and media partners.